Well, hello, everyone. My name is Alaina Levine, and I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions and author of the book, Networking for Nerds. And I am so excited to be here with you today. Really, it's truly my honor and my privilege to work with all of the seismologists and geoscientists that are in the audience listening to us today, hearing us, working with us as we try to move our careers and our field forward in the middle of this pandemic. And so today, what we're going to be talking about in this webinar is how to networking from afar, how to craft and build and really cultivate fruitful win-win alliances with people from all over the world at any given time. And we're going to do this via virtual methods. And you know, a lot of the work that I do, I'm a professional speaker. In fact, I've spoken for the SSA before. It's my privilege. A lot of the work I do as a professional speaker, as a science writer, as a career consultant, involves speaking. It involves interacting with audiences live, one-on-one. And naturally, when the pandemic hit, all of my in-person gigs, all of the conferences and universities that I was going to be speaking at this year were immediately canceled. And so I had to quickly pivot to figure out how I was going to still nurture my relationships with my colleagues, how I was going to potentially build new relationships with new colleagues in the middle of this very challenging space in which we're operating. And so a lot of the examples that I'm going to be giving to you today about how to network from afar, I implemented oftentimes in real time in the middle of the pandemic. And these are strategies and tactics that have been very helpful to me to build those collaborations and to create new opportunities. And the thing that I want you to think about when we're networking, and I'm going to give you some more ideas about this in a moment, but one of my first hashtag spoiler alerts for you, I love spoiler alerts, hashtag spoiler alert for you, is that when we think about networking, it is an act not of dishonor. In fact, networking is the most honorable endeavor in which you can engage, because networking is about an act of generosity. It is about you displaying your genuine, authentic self, your genuine, authentic generosity to another party to see how you could potentially help them, inject value into their organization, advance the agenda of their team, of their organization, of their group, of their field, whatever. That creation of the mutually beneficial partnership is honorable because it is helping the other party. And that's what networking is about. Networking is not me trying to get something from you. I'm not trying to extract a job or a fellowship or a postdoc from your brain. I'm not trying to trick you into giving me an opportunity. I am trying to legitimately, generously, authentically build a relationship with you where I can potentially help you solve a problem that you may have not been able to solve before, inject value into your organization, into your enterprise, do something that will advance your agenda. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm doing networking. And that's what I thought about during this pandemic. I will tell you more about that, but I just wanted to give you that spoiler alert in that networking is honorable because I'm seeking to help the other party. That's what it is about. We'll talk more about that in just a moment, but I just wanted to give you a quick some quick information. First of all, you are welcome to live tweet this talk. You are welcome to tweet afterwards. You can quote anything I say. You can even take screenshots and post them. And I ask that if you do decide to tweet, that you use the handle for the organization, that's Seismo Society AM, as well as my handle at Alaina G. Levine, hashtag networking for nerds. And I invite you to join me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn address is at Alaina G. Levine. This is how LinkedIn is the main way that I use to communicate free career planning resources. So this is how I announce webinars and articles and templates and tip sheets and all sorts of things that are designed to help scientists and engineers move their career forward, because that's my area of expertise, and truly that's my passion, is helping scientists and engineers find, create, land, and keep their dream job, whatever that dream job happens to be. And admittedly, a lot of that is based on networking. So we'll talk more about that. So I wanted to start off by actually giving you an actual actual definition, actually, and I'm going to use that word a lot, an actual definition of networking, because I want you to be very clear what I'm talking about so that you see that it is based in honor and generosity. So networking, first of all, is a spectrum of activities. It's not just a one-time deal. It's not just emailing somebody in the Seismological Society's membership directory and saying, can I talk to you, talking to them and never speaking to them again. That first interaction is the starting point. That's the starting point of the networking. That's the starting point of the relationship. And that's the thing that you want to be thinking about. Okay, so it's a spectrum of activities which begins with that first interaction. It aims for that win-win alliance, right? Where we're both providing value in different forms and functions and fashions over time. And it is in it for the long haul. In other words, today when I reach out to you, maybe on LinkedIn, or maybe I find you or see an article that you wrote in a journal about a specific area of your field or your subfield that you're working on, and I find that interesting, and I email you and I say, I really appreciated what you wrote in this paper. Could we set up a 15-minute Skype or WhatsApp or a Zoom appointment? I'd like to learn more about what you're working on. Maybe there's something we can do in collaboration. Those are the types of phrases I use. I'm investing for the long term. I recognize that because it's a win-win, there will be value that you will be giving me. And at that moment, it's just information. And I might be just giving you information at this moment too. But the more we engage, the more conversations we have, the more interactions we have, the more hidden opportunities will become elucidated as to how we could potentially collaborate, as to how I could potentially help you solve a problem or meet a challenge or approach a challenge that you haven't been able to beforehand. And so these are the kinds of things that are revealed over the course of a networking relationship. And that's why we think about networking as an investment for the long term. That I know I'll get value out of it, but mostly what I'm concerned about right now is giving value, because that's what networking is all about. It's about that generosity spirit. Very important. Now, we're in the middle of the pandemic. So let me back up a minute and tell you, I can't physically back up, but let me back up a minute and tell you metaphorically a little bit about what happened to me in this pandemic. So as I mentioned, my gigs were canceled. So what this meant for me as a contractor, as a freelancer, this meant that a majority of my yearly income was suddenly cut, a majority. So I had to move quickly to figure out what I was going to do about this, because honestly, I have to pay my rent. I have to pay for, paint, as you can see behind me. I'm painting my walls. I have to pay for food. And if you're like me, you probably also have a cupcake budget that you have to pay for as well. And that's not a want, that's a need. So I have to pay for cupcakes. You understand that, right? You know that that's a need. So I needed to figure out how I was going to get income, get money to pay these expenses for this year. So I began to draw back on what I knew about networking. See, the virtual networking that I'm describing to you today is actually something that I've been doing on my own for years and years and years. I am a certified conference junkie. If I could go to every single conference, I would. I love conferences. I love that interaction. I love learning about different areas of STEM. I love interacting with the cutting edge scientists who are creating these and discovering these amazing innovations and knowledge about the universe. That is truly a pleasure for me, an intellectual pleasure. It's like chocolate or cupcakes for my brain. But of course, I don't have all the money or all the time or all the clones in the world to be able to go to all the conferences that I want to meet people. So I have been relying on virtual networking for years and years and years. Virtual networking in the form of, for example, finding people on LinkedIn and asking for that 15-minute phone appointment or Skype appointment or Zoom appointment, or finding people in a membership directory like the SSA's directory, or finding people who've written papers and reaching out to them, or finding people who are quoted in the media. I'm actually going to give you a full list of how you find people. But this is how I've been doing it for years, and I would start the conversation via email and then continue it via phone or via Zoom or whatever, and then follow up with them, continue the conversation to make sure that it's growing, flowing, and going, to invest in the long-term relationship with this person. So I knew in the pandemic, when we weren't going to have an opportunity to see face-to-face people in person, that I could utilize virtual networking techniques to help me find new collaborators in the pandemic. Operating under the foundation or on the foundation of generosity, I want to see what I can do for my clients. I reached out to collaborators, people that I had been working with previously, past clients, people who hadn't hired me for years. I reached out to people who I'd never been hired by, who I'd never collaborated with, but we had a relationship in the form of just conversations going back and forth by email or LinkedIn. And I also reached out to new people, people that I thought would be able to benefit from some of the information that I might be able to provide. And this is what I said. I emailed people and I wrote, first of all, I understand we're in the middle of the pandemic. I said, I hope this email finds you and your colleagues healthy and safe, right? I acknowledged where we were. I acknowledged that we're in this challenging situation, challenging to say the least. And I said, as you know, I do a lot of webinars on a lot of different topics. And if I can help you with your members, if I can help you with your students, with your postdocs, if I can help you to amplify the work that you're doing to your constituents right now, please let me know. This is the kind of thing that I have experience in. This is the kind of thing that I can do. And I'd love to help you meet the challenge of the pandemic in a way that continues to solidify the relationship that you have with your constituents. Here is a list of topics on which I can speak. Please let me know how I can help you. Please let me know how I can assist you. Please let me know how we could potentially collaborate to ease this troubled time or this challenging time. Those are the kinds of phrases that I employed. And I got people responding. Because I didn't email them and say, I need a job, give me a job, I need money, give me cupcakes. I didn't say that. I said, this is what I want to see. Maybe there's something I can do for you. How can I help you? Can we explore what I could do for you? These are the kinds of things that I could do for you right now. Maybe this would be of assistance to you. It was all about helping the other party. And I ended up with webinars. I ended up with being able to be financially safe, which was a very important thing. And of course, to me, and it was also a blessing. And I'm very appreciative. I have a lot of gratitude to my colleagues for this opportunity. And I suspect that they also viewed it as a win-win, that I was being able to provide value to them just as much as they were able to provide value to me. And that's the essence of networking, right? So this is how I did it. So I want you to think about these key points when you're virtually networking, especially right now in the middle of the pandemic. And also, admittedly, let's be clear, let's be honest and transparent about this. Not only are we dealing with the pandemic, but particularly in the United States, we're also dealing with questions of social justice. So this is a challenging time. This is a very troubled time. This is a very hard time. And so I want to be, as I engage people, very compassionate and display a lot of empathy. That's why I start every email with, I hope this email finds you and your colleagues and your family safe and healthy. Because I want to make it clear that I understand we are in this together and that I also am experiencing this, but you may be experiencing differently. You may be experiencing it more it might be a bigger challenge for you. It might be harder for you. You might actually be sick or have family members or colleagues who are sick. That's not something that we are going to throw under the rug. We're going to address it and acknowledge it, but we're going to do so with compassion and empathy so they understand that we understand that we're all humans in this together. I'm also going to display a lot of patience, right? And patience and respect in the sense that I'm not going to, if they don't respond to me right away, I'm not going to ping them 17 times. I'm not going to text them at 2 o'clock in the morning. For networking purposes, I definitely am not going to do that. So especially during the pandemic and during this time of questions of social justice, I'm going to allow people extra time, though normally that I wouldn't necessarily do, give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to email them. I might even allow 3 weeks before I follow up because I want to demonstrate that I understand that these are challenging times. I'm going to look to see how I can provide value by problem solving. So I'm looking, as I'm engaging you, I'm looking to find out what are some problems that you have that have not been able to be solved, or what are some new problems that you're engaged with in this pandemic or in this challenging time that we're facing, or what are the walls in your organization or in your team that are impeding innovation? What are the pain points in your system that I could potentially help alleviate? I'm not doing this in a snooty way or in a way where we're in a cocky way where I'm the answer to every question. I am absolutely not. Again, generosity of spirit. I want to see what I can do for you. And so the conversation and later the conversations that we will have will help to illuminate what are those pain points that I might be able to assist you with, to alleviate. But that's solving a problem. I'm always going to be interacting with you in very graciously, very gracefully, with gratitude and a sense of giving. I'm going to be appreciative of the time, because the time that you took to interact with me is time you're taking away from other work that you could be doing in your professional life and other interactions you could be having in your personal life. And what I've noticed in the pandemic is that for many of us, our workloads have increased significantly. Even people who are early in their career, postdocs and graduate students and other colleagues, scientists and engineers, you may have found that your workload significantly increased. The number of emails that you're getting has significantly increased. And that's, of course, why we have another round of patients, of course. And so I'm going to be very gracious about interacting with you, recognizing that we all have a lot of emails, right? I was talking to a colleague yesterday or a few weeks ago who I hadn't heard from, and I said, I hope everything is okay. Just wanted to check in with you. No need, we don't need to have a long conversation. Just tell me that you and your family are okay. And she said, I'm so sorry. I have 200 unopened emails in my inbox right now. And I totally could empathize. I could sympathize and I could empathize and I could totally relate, because that's probably about the number that I have in my inbox too. And I suspect that's how many you have in your inbox as well. So because of this, I'm also going to have a lot of flexibility, and I'm going to have customization in that I'm going to be addressing in real time. So as you're talking to me, as we're networking and having those conversations, and I'm learning more about what you're working on and what needs you have, and maybe what gaps I could potentially fill with my own knowledge or expertise or experience or even networks, I'm aiming to customize what I could potentially provide for you, the value I could provide or the problem I could solve for you in real time. And that, I gotta say, you STEM nerds, and I say this with complete respect because I am a STEM nerd. My background is mathematics and physics. I have a degree in mathematics and anthropology. I started in physics before I was, don't tell anybody, seduced by the dark side and got my degree in mathematics. But I never left the physics and physical sciences and engineering type communities. And I've been writing about physics and the related fields for over 25 years now, actually, which is hard to believe, I know, because I look so young, you guys. But anyway, the point is that I wanted to, the idea here is that it's very, very important to customize, to be able to adapt. And what I've noticed about scientists and engineers, particularly in seismology, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, part of what you do in seismology is adjusting in real time as you are taking data and as you are analyzing scenarios, earthquakes and seismological events and other types of geological experiences and events. You have to adapt in real time. So the training that you've gained and the education that you've gained and the way that you've learned how to solve problems as a scientist and an engineer in your field is actually fantastic training for the type of networking and the type of career building and the type of relationship building that you are engaged in right now in the middle of this pandemic, because it's very important for you to be able to adapt, be flexible, and customize solutions in real time as you're talking to people. As you get new data from the individual, you can adjust what you're saying, you can adjust what you could potentially offer, you can adjust and share a particular area of your expertise that might be useful for that person to know. So your ongoing questions as you are virtually networking is, what problems am I uniquely qualified or positioned to solve? What value can I add to your project, to your team, to your organization, to my field? What challenges can I help you overcome now and in the future? What opportunities can we collaboratively pursue? And ultimately, what can I do for you during this challenging time? With this in mind, consider this. We need new collaborators, all of us, and to expand our network, all of us, at all times. Especially scientists and engineers, especially STEM educated professionals. In a crisis, we need them more than ever. Think of this. See, as scientists, and quite frankly, no matter what profession you choose to go into for your dream job, for your unicorn career, as I like to say, whatever you decide to do, you know what? You will always need new collaborators. Your team will always need new collaborators. Your PI, your boss, your supervisor, your colleagues, your trainees, your proteges, your mentors, everybody around you in your ecosystem will, including you, will always need new collaborators. Why? Because we constantly need a diverse source of inspiration of new people coming into our network to help us solve problems in new ways. How can we expect to have the next innovation or the next discovery without new perspectives, without new insight, without new ideas coming in from fresh brains, from fresh minds who have different experiences. That's just part of the reason why diversity and innovation and networking are all tied together in a very important triple helix. Because without diversity, you cannot have innovation. Diversity of minds where we bring together a network of collaborators, of colleagues, of people who are coming from different experiences, different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, everything, diversity of all forms. That informs the problem solving in a new way. It provides new insight, which leads to novel solutions and novel discoveries and novel innovations. Networking, you cannot have successful networking without a diversity. You cannot have successful innovation without diversity. You cannot have diversity and innovation without successful networking, and so on and so on and so forth. So the three are always combined. They are always interwoven, and particularly in a crisis when we have new challenges and new stimuli that change every day, we need new perspectives. We need access to that diversity of mind, what I call the diverse mind field, the network of people around the world who can provide new insight because they're bringing a new perspective on a problem to solve it in a new way. So I don't want you to think that it's dishonorable or that you're invading somebody's space or time or that you're being ungracious if you contact somebody during this crisis or during these crises that we're experiencing, because they need new contacts in their network just as much as you need new contacts in their network, because they're facing new challenges that they have never undertaken before. They need to have new perspectives. They need to have access to diversity, and you're providing that diversity. So, and they understand that. And by they, I mean everybody, and that includes you. So we're all working on this together. So what we're trying to do in this crisis, in these crises, is continue our work, which requires that we continue to learn and hone new skills, meet and speak with new people from diverse fields, jobs, sectors, geographies, backgrounds, and so forth, promote ourselves, our work, and that of our team so that we can find new collaborators and help them with their efforts and gain information perspective that enables success for everybody. This is all about creating that win-win. So I want to give you a few examples. These are true examples of people I've written about and spoken about in STEM in particular, who were able to create opportunities for themselves by creating opportunities for another party. See, what happens with effective networking, the kind of networking that I'm talking about, done so on a foundation of generosity of spirit, compassion, and building that win-win alliance. What can I do for you, not what can I take from you? What happens with that type of networking is that there are three avenues of success in that networking. An opportunity is created for the other party, an opportunity is created for you, and an opportunity is created for the two of you, something fresh, something new that is born from the conversations that you have, from the relationship that you build in that networking. And that's really amazing. When I see that happen, it's just like magic. It's magic because like it is happening out of nothing. It is materializing only because we are engaged in that appropriate, effective, generous, win-win alliance building that networking provides, that networking is aiming for. So let me give you a couple of examples of actual people who did this and were able to create opportunities for themselves, opportunities for the other party, and then opportunities for the two of them to come together and create something fresh, something new. And that's so exciting in science in particular. So the first one is the story of a biophysicist. So this biophysicist was getting his PhD in biophysics. He wanted to work in biosensors. But what he did not have, if he wanted to do a postdoc, which is what he wanted to do next, he wanted to do a postdoc where he could learn and hone skills relating to building biosensors, there was certain types of nanotech and nanoscience techniques that he would need to be effective in the biosensors field, which he did not have, having done his PhD. So typically what he might have done in another life, in another universe, he might have looked for postdoc appointments that were advertised, that were in biosensors, email the professor and say, hey, I'd love to work with you. Can I work with you? I don't have the requisite information, but I'd love to work with you. Can I work with you? Can you give me a job? Gimme. He didn't do that. He thought a little bit more strategically about this. And instead, he did a literature search looking for professors who were working in biosensors, but lacked a specific area of biophysics techniques that he could provide, right? The value added that he could provide. That's what he was looking for. A gap in their system, a gap in their program or projects or research that he could potentially fill that would add value. That's what he was looking for. And then he reached out to those people. Then he emailed those professors. And he didn't say, give me a job, give me money, give me a postdoc. He said, I think there might be an opportunity to collaborate. I'm doing biophysics and I want to move into biosensors, and I could potentially help your team with the biophysics aspect of it. And I'd love to learn more about nanoscience. Could we talk? Could we informally have a conversation? And that was the phrase I think he used, and I use that phrase a lot, or a version of that phrase he probably used, but I used that exact phrase. Could we have an informal conversation to explore the potential to collaborate? That's exactly how I phrase it in emails. So he used a version of that, and he heard back from professors, because professors who particularly are advertising postdocs, they get a lot of emails, perhaps hundreds of emails, begging, pleading from people, can you give me the postdoc, gimme. But in this case, he was saying, I want to see what I can do for you. So of course, an email like that, somebody is going to respond to. So this one particular professor at Northeastern University in mechanical engineering, she responded and she said, yeah, let's have a conversation. They had a meeting and she ended up creating, oh my goodness, she actually created from thin air a postdoc appointment for him in her lab. OMG, you guys. Oh my gosh. Seriously? Yes. It was amazing to me. I mean, it happens all the time, but whenever I hear a story like that, it just helps me feel like hope and appreciation for the world, especially when we're in a challenging time. And what he said, or what she said, what the professor said, was that he taught us techniques in biophysics and we taught him about nanoscience. Doesn't that encapsulate the win-win right there? He went in thinking about a win-win. He was able to create a new opportunity for the two of them to work together. It helped her, it helped him. All three boxes were checked, and he did it in the spirit of generosity. Another example, a mathematician who wanted to work for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She got her PhD in applied mathematics, particularly associated with lava flow, but she didn't know much about the geosciences aspects of volcanology and lava flow, but that was actually where she wanted to go. And instead of applying for positions, or maybe she did apply for positions and didn't get any interviews, she reached out to individuals within certain departments at JPL to ask for an appointment, right, an informal conversation to discuss the potential to collaborate, to share how she could potentially help them from a modeling and simulation perspective. They weren't hiring mathematicians at that point, they were hiring geophysicists and planetary scientists and planetary geologists and volcanologists. But she, as she wrote to me, I sold myself as an applied mathematician who could solve any problem. And as a result, she had a position created for her in volcanology, in the volcanology group at JPL. She got her dream job created just for her. And the last example is what I call the man with a plan for cans. That's actually based on an article I wrote. That's the name of the article. So you can Google it and you'll find it. It was written for APS News, the man with a plan for cans. So here's the story. This is a story about a particle physicist who was working as a professor at a university in North Carolina. And he was married to a food scientist in my home state of New Jersey, the Garden State, exit 8A, y'all. She worked at Campbell's Food Company, Campbell's Soup, as a food scientist. Now they had the classic two-body challenge, right? The two-body problem where a couple, a partnership, two people are in a partnership and they would like to live in the same area or work in the same area. And they had challenges finding jobs in the same city, let alone the same state. And unlike most couples, they actually wanted to live with each other. So this was a conundrum, but they were unable to solve this two-body problem. So what they ended up having was she lived in New Jersey, he lived in North Carolina, and they had a commuter marriage where they flew back and forth to see each other. So one day, the physicist flies up to New Jersey to have dinner with his wife and some executives from the plant at Campbell's Food where they make mushroom soup. And over dinner, these executives started talking about a problem wink, wink, hint, hint, this is the moment, a problem that existed in the plant where they make the mushroom soup. See, this was the problem. When mushroom soup is made, at the end, when you open up the can, every can of mushroom soup has to be exactly the same color. So you have to be able to identify mushrooms as they go down the line that could potentially change the outcome of the final product, right? You can't open up a can and have green soup and then open up another can and have purple soup and open up another can and have orange soup, because that's gross, scientifically speaking, and bad quality control. So they needed to find a way to identify the mushrooms. But woe unto us, we're just executives. We don't know how to solve this problem. And they were literally, or maybe figuratively, crying into their chocolate cake at dinner while they were talking about this problem. Well, this physicist is just like you STEM goddesses and gods. He suddenly heard them talking about this pain point that they were describing, and suddenly he jumped into superhero physicist mode, and he said, wait a second, why don't we use such and such optical device? This was an optical device that he had at the forefront of his mind. It was part of his toolbox. It was part of his toy box. And the executive said, interesting. And that interesting turned into a longer conversation, which turned into a short-term project, which turned into a sabbatical job, which turned into a job, check this out, y'all, a job being created for a particle physicist at Campbell's Soup Company, somebody who had no food, soup, mushroom experience, no manufacturing or industrial or systems or chemical or process or safety engineering experience whatsoever. His playground, his wheelhouse was quarks and gluons. And yet, at the right moment, those Campbell's executives heard him describe the value that he could provide coming into their arena with a physics background. He saw solutions where they didn't. He saw opportunities where they couldn't. He saw ways to improve the system where they didn't know how to even explore it. And so because in the right moment, he shared graciously, he wasn't looking for a job. He just graciously said, you know, you might try this optical device. He generously shared this information to help them solve the problem. He communicated to them and with them in the language they were using so they'd understand that value. They'd understand how this could solve the problem. And they started to see that he would be a value added to their organization. And despite the fact that he had none of the prereqs, I don't even know if they ever hired a physicist or somebody with a physics degree before him. They certainly never hired a PhD physics professor before at Campbell's Soup Company. They were willing to take a chance on him because they saw he would provide value. His diversity of perspective, his diversity of experience led to innovation. He was networking with them in the right moment. He communicated his value in their language in a generous spirit. He ended up getting a job there, and yay, they solved the two-body problem. Heart, you guys. They got to move in together in New Jersey, and he worked for Campbell's for many years, coming up with all sorts of new innovations that he deployed in the plant, in the company, saving the company millions of dollars and doing amazing in this field. It's truly amazing to me what the value is of generous networking, genuine and genuous networking, associated with building that win-win, associated with what can I do for you, how that can create opportunities for us. So that's what we're trying to think about. The thing is that the majority of jobs, and I estimate about 90% of jobs, are hidden or don't exist until we start networking and until we start communicating our value to other people. And this is very important. Communicating the value is very important, and the networking is very important, not just right now in the pandemic, but remember, we're investing for the long haul. And so the networking that we do today is going to help us and other parties in the future. And the networking that we did yesterday is going to help us today and in the future. It's all a time scenario here. So let me give you an example. If I am actually advertising for a job, an actual promotional promotion for a specific job, as the decision maker, I will have a problem. I need to hire a candidate who will be a good fit for my organization, for my company or my organizational culture, who has amazing scientific and engineering skills, but also has amazing communication and project management and team building and leadership skills as well. So I need to find somebody very reliable. So I will always have two metaphorical piles of applications that I can potentially go to find candidates to invite them in for the interview. So one pile is because I advertise the position, I will get resumes and cover letters and applications from the website and from the advertisement. These could be hundreds of pages long. So I could have hundreds of applications depending on the nature of the position, the time in which I'm promoting the position, the type of organization, the type of industry. The thing is that hundreds of applications coming in through the website, I don't know who these people are. I mean, they literally, I think you'd agree with this, they literally could be coming in from another dimension, from another universe. They might not even be human. So if I don't know who these people are, these quote unquote people are, this is a daunting task. This is a hard problem to solve, to go through hundreds of applications to find somebody that's worth the time and money to invite them in for an interview. However, I will always have a second metaphorical pile of applications. Maybe two, maybe three applications. So the first application in that pile is your application. I'm about to advertise this position. We've already been networking. I've known you for a few years, or maybe it's just a few months, but you've indicated what your skill set is. We've had conversations and I've learned more about your problem solving abilities and value. And I email you and I say, we're going to be advertising this position, or we're advertising this position. I'd like to invite you to apply. So now your application's on the short pile, not the long pile. The next person is, maybe I've been interacting with you. I know you're really smart, you're talented, you're ambitious. You also have a strong network. And I email you and I say, we have this position. Do you know anybody who would be right? And I trust you being in my network. I trust that you would vet somebody and that you would send me somebody who would be reliable, who would have an excellent reputation, an excellent promise of value, that would be somebody I could rely on and would be a potentially good candidate. So that person goes in the second pile. And the third type of person that could be in that short pile could be somebody that I'm just starting to network with. So maybe you see the advertised position and you do something that most people don't do with advertised positions. You email me and you say, I saw this position. It sounds like it is exactly the right fit for what I want to do in my experience. Could we have a short 15-minute informal conversation so I could learn more about the role, to see if I am the right fit and see what I could do potentially to enable your success if I were to join your team? I start a conversation with you. I have only 15 minutes with you, but in that conversation, I learn more about you and suddenly I invite you to apply. So now I have 3 people on this pile and I have hundreds of people on this pile. Which pile am I going to go to? Which pile am I always going to go to that's going to solve my problem of hiring somebody and finding candidates that I could invite into an interview, which will reduce the risk in hiring? It will always, and you know the answer, of course, it will always be that short pile. I want to reduce my risk and I want to solve my problem of inviting people and hiring candidates that would be a good fit in the most efficient manner possible. So I will always go with the people that I know, the people who were recommended by the people I know, and the people who have reached out to me to network, even just right now. That's the value of networking. Networking is all about creating and accessing hidden opportunities, which you have to do if you're going to move forward in your career. You have to do this. But to do this, you have to know your value. Then you have to articulate your value through appropriate self-promotion. You have to have that generosity and honor, that spirit of honor and generosity to align your value that you could provide a party, the problem that you could solve, with the challenge that they're experiencing, always showing that you would solve a problem. And the reality is that because most opportunities are hidden, we want to engage and network with people as much as possible. And not every opportunity is a job. But what is true is that every opportunity leads to another, and you want to seize as many as you can and create the ones that you need and want. And what I find is that the idea is to be a career entrepreneur. That's what I use, the line that I use, the phrase, career entrepreneur. What that means for you is you are looking for problems that you are uniquely qualified to solve in the career sphere, in the career arena, in interacting with colleagues from different arenas, from different fields, from different subfields, from different sectors, both industry and academia, research and elsewhere. You are looking to see what it is you can do for the other party. Those opportunities that you're looking for, what I find is most people have their eyes shut. They don't see the opportunities. And you have to be bold and brave to be a career entrepreneur, to look for walls that are impeding innovation, to look for pain points. Just like that physicist at dinner, he had to be brave to say, why don't you try this optical device? They might have said, no, that optical device we've used before, and maybe he might have been slightly embarrassed, but you know what, as scientists, as STEM goddesses and gods that you are, it's totally appropriate to suggest an idea. And if it's already been used, so what? Who cares? The fact is that you were brave and smart and ambitious to demonstrate that you wanted to help the other party. So be bold, be brave in your career entrepreneurship. Look for those problems that you are uniquely qualified to solve. Now, networking is linked to self-promotion, so let me give you a definition of that, an example, so you know what I'm talking about. First of all, networking happens in an appropriate form, self-promotion happens in an appropriate form and ecosystem. So it's not me screaming at you, I'm awesome, hire me, give me a job, gimme, I'm great. That's not how self-promotion works. It is all about appropriateness. And so, for example, on LinkedIn, when I post an article that I've written, for example, that would be useful to the people that I'm interacting with, the people in my network, that's totally appropriate. I'm not saying I'm the greatest career entrepreneur ever, or the greatest career consultant ever. I'm saying I wrote an article about how to virtually interview. Here are some tips. Boom, totally appropriate. It is authentic and truthful. So I never lie. I never embellish. I am not bragging. I'm not cocky. I share only truthful and authentic information about my value. But what I find with many STEM goddesses and gods is that we tend to undervalue ourselves and therefore undermarket and underpromote ourselves in the career marketplace. And so what's very important is for us to communicate the full extent of our value, the full truth. So the self-promotion is providing strategic information about your value that is encouraging me to make a decision to engage you further in a positive manner. Let me give you a metaphorical example. Let's say I reach out to you on LinkedIn. I see that you are working for let's say an energy company, for an oil and gas company. And I reach out to you and I say, I'm early in my career. I might even use this phrase, I'm early in my career explorations. I'm looking to see how I can position myself for success in the energy sector. Those are great phrases that I encourage early career professionals to use. So again, I want to see how I can position myself for success in your company, in a company like yours, in your sector, in your industry. I'm early in my career explorations. Could we have a 15-minute appointment? I'd like to learn what you're working on. Maybe there's something I can do to assist you, right? So I talk to you, you work for, let's say, Chevron, for example, and I ask you, what's the best part of your job? And what kind of challenges, what are you working on? What kind of programs or projects are you working on right now? And so you tell me about a project that you're doing in the Middle East, where you're trying to expand the company's footprint in the Middle East. And I say, oh my goodness, that is so interesting. In addition to my background in mathematics, I don't know if you knew this, but I actually studied Arabic for 4 years. In fact, I was fluent because I studied abroad as a U.S. Department of Defense Born Fellow at the American University in Cairo. So I know the language, I know the culture, I know the customs. Maybe there's a way that I could assist you. If I can help you in that project, please let me know. I'd love to see how I could collaborate with you and maybe add value. So what I did there was I shared at the appropriate moment when the other person talked about that there was an opening, right? There was an opportunity, that there was a problem they were trying to solve. I shared authentic and truthful information about my value, about what I know, so that they would be able to ask me, really, that's very interesting. Can you tell me about your experience, engaging me further? By the way, that Arabic is actually true. I actually did study abroad in Cairo, and I was fluent in Arabic after 4 years. So it is something that I add. But the point that I wanted to make to you is, why shouldn't you, if you have a fantastic fellowship, if you have a credential that's very unique or fantastic, very useful, very valuable, perhaps invaluable in this field, share that. You don't have to start with it. You don't have to scream, I speak Arabic, I can help you in your Middle Eastern project. You don't do that, but you engage the person in a conversation, and at the right moment, you're listening for them to talk about an opportunity where you could collaborate, and that's when you share that truthful information. That is self-promotion, and that is totally appropriate, and it's needed. If I'm going to hire you, if I'm going to engage you, if I'm going to look how we could collaborate, I need to know what your value is. I need to know who you are and your skills and your experience. So the bottom line is that self-promotion is being your own champion. It is not bragging. If you don't champion, if you don't speak up, if you don't sing out about your true value at the right moment, using the right words, nobody is going to know about it. And I want to engage you. So now, how do you find people for your network, particularly right now in the virtual community? So I always start, and I encourage you to take a picture of this slide if you'd like, to ask colleagues, advisors, and friends, ask them, start with the people in your circle, to ask them, do you know anybody who works in this sector? Do you know anybody who works in this geography? Do you know anybody who's doing X, who's doing this subfield, who's doing this type of work, or has this type of skill? So I ask people around me, and then they introduce me. And that vetting process allows the networking to be even smoother. Because if somebody comes to me and says, Alaina, I'd like to introduce you to my friend, to my colleague, to my protege, to my mentor, I already know you. I'm going to, of course, take the meeting with that other person because I know you would bring me somebody really amazing and I want to learn from them. I trust you. I trust that they will be just as generous as you are. I also look to professional organizations. So the SSA is a fantastic opportunity for you to be a member of because you can access the membership directory, you can look at the committees, you could potentially volunteer for the committees. That's a great networking opportunity. But I would just even go through the membership directory and find people that are interesting to you and email them and say, I found your contact information in the directory. I'm a member as well. I'd like to learn more how I can move into volcanology with my seismology expertise. Could I talk to you for 15 minutes? Totally appropriate. Conferences, even the virtual conferences, review the agenda, attend virtually, attend the virtual networking events that happen, and reach out to people. Reach out to people before. If you see that somebody's speaking on a topic that you're interested in, email them in advance or immediately after the conference, if you don't, whether you go or not, and say, you're talking on something that is really interesting to me that I want to learn more about. Could we have a conversation? Even from reading, I've found people, both reading journal papers and then contacting the authors, but then also even media reports. So if I see somebody is talking in a New York Times article about, let's say, the seismology challenges, particularly during the pandemic, and I see somebody who's working on this for, let's say, the USGS, I'm going to email them. And I'm going to say, I saw you quoted in the New York Times. I thought what you said was really interesting and important, particularly right now. I think there might be an opportunity for us to collaborate, or I'm early in my career exploration. I'd like to learn more about how I could position myself in this field. Could we talk? Could we have a 15-minute Zoom appointment? Note that I'm only and always asking for 15 minutes, so they know I'm not even going to take up their entire lunch hour. I'm only giving them, I'm only taking up 15 minutes of their day, and I'm going to stick to that. Regional chapters and internal organizations within larger organizations, companies, agencies, and so forth. Even alumni networks, which part of which I quite frankly use a lot on LinkedIn. You can do a search for alumni of your alma mater on LinkedIn, and then social networks, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and ResearchGate, and some of the others as well, have been extremely, extremely helpful to me, particularly during the pandemic. Honestly, LinkedIn is my go-to. And even academics, even researchers are on LinkedIn, and you should be on LinkedIn. In fact, that's your main homework assignment. That's your first homework assignment for today, is that if you don't have a LinkedIn account, create a free one, look at my profile, Alaina G. Levine, use that as a template, start importing your CV to create a LinkedIn profile, connect with me, and then start connecting with other people to build your network on LinkedIn. And then you can start doing searches on LinkedIn to find other people that you could potentially network with. Now, your networking strategy. Because you are the best audience I've had ever, I think you would agree, the best audience that I've ever had, I want to give you a gift. I mentioned I wrote a book called Networking for Nerds, and you're welcome to buy that or 17 copies of it. However, because you're amazing, and this is SSA, raise the roof, y'all, I want to give you this gift. Take a picture of this slide. If you take a picture of any slide, take a picture of this slide, because this slide is the outline for my book. This is the excruciating step-by-step checklist that you do to network, much of which I've already covered now today, but I want to actually walk you through each of the steps now. So you can use this, and I use this every single time I think about reaching out to somebody. So first of all, I recognize that, remember, it's a spectrum of continuous activities. It's not just that first interaction. It's not just connecting with somebody on LinkedIn and then never talking to them. It's connecting with them on LinkedIn, then sending them a message, then having that 15-minute phone appointment, then following up as appropriate. It also is based on 6 degrees of separation, that if I do want to work in China, or if I do want to work in India, or if I want to work in Australia or Uruguay, that there are people that I know in my network who can connect me. If I want to work for this agency or this company or this university, there are people worldwide as part of the SSA community who can connect me. 6 degrees, we're all connected to every other person on the planet by no more than 6 degrees. So we're going to start by finding people for our network, right? That was the previous slide. Then, as I mentioned, we're going to ask for those informal conversations or informational interviews. Same word, same phrase, means the same thing. But it is important to employ one of those phrases in the email where you ask me for the conversation, because it's a code phrase that tells me that you're not trying to get a job from me. You may need a job, and I get that. I need a job and you need a job. We all need jobs at any given time. Remember, we're not playing a game here. We're not being inauthentic. I know you need money. I need money. We all need money to live, to pay for our cupcakes, remember? So, but what we're not doing is we're not asking for the job right now, and we're not even suggesting that we're asking for a job now. Instead, we're looking to see how we could potentially help the other party. And so the phrase informal conversation tells me that that's what you're legitimately looking for, that you're genuinely interested in building that win-win alliance. That's so important. So then we start the conversation, right? And if you are curious to know what we discuss in the informational interview, here's a resource for you. Google my name, Alaina Levine, and the words informational interview. And you will find a 2-part article that I wrote on this topic for Physics Today magazine, which you can read for free. I believe the website is physicstoday.com or .org. I honestly don't remember. The informational interviews, part 1 and part 2. In part 1, I believe I provide the template of the email that you use to ask for the informational or informal conversation. In part 2, I give you a list of questions. What's the best part of your job? What skill do you value the most? What challenges are you working on right now or facing right now? What challenges are you facing right now, particularly in the pandemic? That's a great question to ask. Maybe there's something I can do to assist you. I always try to also ask people for their contact information, just in case I don't have all of it, because I want to send a thank you note. After I have that first 15-minute appointment, I'm going to send you a thank you note. Before the pandemic, I was a strong believer in handwritten notes because it shows the person that you took extra time to express your appreciation. During the pandemic, it's all about email, and that's totally fine. But do send that thank you email immediately. Maintain that network and stay connected and organize your network in a way that makes sense for you. I use a combination of LinkedIn, my email, and even my calendar. So in other words, after we have a conversation, I'm going to make a note in my LinkedIn. I believe there's a place in LinkedIn where you can actually do private notes where if we're connected, I can make a private note saying we talked on July 20th about such and such. Then if you said to me, can you follow up with me in 2 weeks with this information about the data that you might have? I'm going to make a note in my calendar. And I'm going to even put a potential calendar invite in my email. So I use those 3 because that's the process that works for me. You have to figure out what process works for you. I'm also going to ask you in the conversation, who else do you think I should be speaking to? Because the other person will almost always will suggest another party and perhaps even introduce you via email or LinkedIn to that other person. And I'm always going to offer to be of assistance. So this is my checklist. I do this every single time I reach out to somebody and as I continue growing those relationships. So in the crisis, just some final thoughts about networking strategy in a crisis. We want to be a resource, right? We want to be polite and respectful. We want to be patient, not expect responses right away. We're investing for the future. We're showing generosity, grace, gratitude. We're being compassionate, both in our actions and our choice of words, how we speak, what we discuss, and when. We're being flexible. We're being clear that we are mindful, and we are mindful of the issues. Be easy to work with, be simple to work with. Ask questions, gather data and insight about current and future needs and goals that they might have that you could potentially help them with, and offer ideas. Make it a conversation. It shouldn't but just be you interviewing me. It should be us conversing, where you're sharing information about yourself, the self-promotion, while asking me questions about what I'm working on, and I'm sharing information about what I'm doing while asking you questions. But always be thinking, what can I do for you? Stay connected, check in, and remember that we're all in this together. So in conclusion, the bottom line is that networking at all times, 100%, is honorable and generous. And 100% it's needed 100% of the time. Networking is needed 100% of the time for all parties, because we always have to solve our problems in novel ways, right? And so we need access to that diverse minefield, and particularly in a crisis where we're engaged in new challenges that we've never faced before, we need new perspectives. We need people with new backgrounds. We need people with diverse experiences to help us and to help you, all of us, benefit. Become that career entrepreneur where you're looking for opportunities for all of us. Networking now is delicate, but it's totally doable. But what you want to be doing is that, since it is inherently linked to self-promotion, you're looking for opportunities, look beyond your area. Do look your geographic area, your community, your field, your subdiscipline. Be diverse in your networking, because when you do that, you actually create opportunities for everybody. Do it often, and you will be investing in the future of you, your colleagues, and ultimately your community. And that's what's most important, particularly right now. That is a spirit of generosity. So with that, I want to thank you very much. I'm going to take some questions. We have a few upcoming webinars I wanted to just share with you in case you weren't aware. 25 August, how to get a job now. Yes, let's go through the steps. Let's get you a job now. 22 September, cover letters. Let's talk about them. They suck, but we're going to talk about how to write a really effective and articulate one. 21 October, we're going to talk about virtual interviewing and the virtual job talk. And on 17th of November, we are going to banish imposter syndrome for good. Yes. So those are the webinars that I'm going to be doing for SSA. I'm really excited to be working with you and work with them. Again, you are welcome to continue tweeting at Seismo Society AM and at Alaina G. Levine, hashtag networking for nerds, and join me on LinkedIn. Send me a connection invitation. No need to customize. I will accept anybody. I want you to be in my network, and I want to be able to help you with your with your enterprises. This has truly been my pleasure and my honor, as always. I want to thank my amazing partners, the Seismological Society of America, SSA, for their kind support. I want to remind you that SSA is your strategic career partner at this time in the pandemic and beyond. They are in it for the long haul with you to help you in your career development and help you in your career planning. They are your strategic career partner. So I hope you will leverage that relationship to endeavor on something really special for yourself, your colleagues, and your community. I will now take a few questions if anybody has any, but this concludes the formal part of the webinar, and thank you so much, as always. I'm just checking to see if anybody has any questions. And you can add questions in the question console. And it doesn't look like there are any questions today, but if you'd like to email me, you're welcome to do that. So thank you so much. I will look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you, SSA, and I wish you all of the best in your career explorations. Thank you so much.